Hey guys, it's me. I'm doing a little work from home today. It's Wednesday, and we normally have class tonight, but we just have an online version today. So I wanted to catch up with you about that one figure that caused me to stumble a bit in our last class, which had to do with electricity consumption by sector from the Energy Information Administration. So I'm going to get to that in just 1 minute. But while I have you as a captive audience, I wanted to also share this graphic with you, which came into my inbox this week. And it has to do with coal consumption on university campuses. I think it's pretty fascinating. You'll see here that this is from the EIA as well, that coal consumption by U.S. educational institutions, so universities in particular, has declined by 64% since 2008. And the EIA, you can read in the text there, attributes this primarily to colleges and university presidents signing on to climate action plans. So that's fascinating. Of course, you know that's not the whole story. This also has to do with cheap access to natural gas, which we've discussed in class. And if you look at this second figure, which is basically just a scroll down on the same article, you'll see that they broke some things out by state, and Idaho's numbers in particular have decreased. We have dropped coal consumption altogether, and that is because of natural gas capacity. So anyway, I thought that was interesting and just wanted to put that in front of you. Okay, so let's get back to the primary reason why I am taking up your time today. It has to do with that graphic that I showed you at the end of the PowerPoint from last week, titled Primary Energy Use by Sector 2013, which you can see here. And I didn't do a good job of explaining what these various sectors were and why their energy use was what it was. So did a little legwork. Here is an updated primary energy consumption by source and sector. These numbers are still from 2012, and that's just because there's a lag in the data that EIA can collect and compile. So the numbers are less important than figuring out what the categories here. So let's see if we can unpack this a little bit. So if we look closely at this information from EIA, we can see that not only have they identified these four sectors on the right, they've also sort of mapped what the energy sources are on the left. So we're talking about primary energy consumption. So this is not just what they're using in terms of like electricity or refined petroleum at the pump, for example, but also what might include feedstocks. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So transportation is pretty cut and dry. You can see there that energy consumption in transportation sector is going to be primarily from petroleum, some from natural gas. So that's about 26.7%. And then we have these three categories underneath: industrial, residential, and commercial. That bottom dark brown chunk called electric power is also pretty explanatory. So you'll notice that these numbers are a bit old, with natural gas contributing less than coal. We talked about that in class. But electric power also is pretty self-explanatory, about 38% of consumption of, again, those primary energy sources. That makes sense. But let's go ahead and focus our attention on what these two middle categories mean: industrial and residential and commercial. So if we look at the fine print on the EIA, the footnote 5 here, it says that this includes industrial combined heat and power, CHP, and industrial electricity only plants. So we can go to another spot on the EIA website and find out what they mean by industry. So the section that says industry uses many energy sources is helpful here. It describes the manufacturing sector, which is what we're talking about here, and how they use energy sources to produce steam, to pulp liquor from paper making, agricultural waste, tree wood, wood residues from mill processing, wood-related and paper-related refuse. And then it goes on to unpack what energy use by type of industry. And there you see, like we talked about last week, the petroleum refining industry is the largest industrial consumer of energy because they are producing so many products and they're consuming a lot of energy to do that. And then it's also important to just note at the bottom, they talk about energy sources used as feedstocks. So these are when, for example, fossil fuels are used as raw materials in manufacturing. So coal ash, for example, may be used to produce concrete, or petroleum might be used to produce plastics. So that is where those numbers come from. Okay, just a quick note about CHP, combined heat and power basics. So if we have a very big industry that's consuming a lot of electricity or power, say needs to consume a lot of electricity or power, like for example, concrete manufacturing, they may have a power plant that is combined heat and power. So fairly efficient system that they can use. This is from the DOE site, by the way. They can use to produce both heat and power for the production of that kind of manufacturing or that kind of product. Okay, and finally and quickly, what does residential and commercial mean? Well, this has to do again with the types of raw material or primary energy that residential and commercial, mostly buildings, are consuming. So for example, if you have natural gas in your home, that to heat your home, that would count as consumption. And we can see some nice information from EIA here talking about how it's mostly building related, but there is some energy consumption for street and outdoor lighting, sewage treatment, etc. That's a small percentage of those numbers. Okay, everybody, I hope that addresses some of the questions we left unanswered last week. We can talk more about this next week when we meet, and I hope you're enjoying learning about the history of petroleum and geopolitics. I'll talk to you all soon.